morning. We are now in the capable hands of the clerk, Ms. Lisa Lambert.
This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, December 13th. We have approval of minutes from December the 6th.
I believe it's good.
Appeals, we have request for waiver of the noise ordinance on December 22nd from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. on O'Shell Road.
Mr. Daves?
Public hearing today is a public hearing to declare the structures at 906 Donald Street, 1812 LeGrand Drive, 1705 Northview Drive, public nuisances and ordering them demolished.
Mr. Penn is out for pre-conference, but he will be back for 10:30. Mr. Dave, are we okay? We okay? Okay.
I understand he's not here, but just give you an update. We had a call from one of the owners for 1705 Northview Drive. So we do expect him to show up today for the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Public hearings to consider approval of a certificate of public convenience and necessity to Southwest Chapter of Alabama Coalition of Citizens with Disabilities to operate a shuttle service. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. David Clark would like to do a presentation on Destination Next study of tourism in Mobile. Timothy Jensen speak in opposition to medical cannabis dispensaries in Mobile. Michelle Simons, questions and concerns regarding annexation. John Arundel, thanking the council for their support of the Mobile Law Enforcement Foundation and the MPD. Ordinances held Dover 01062, ordinance to authorize the operation of medical cannabis dispensing sites within the city limits of the city of Mobile.
Mr. President.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, just a question on this. What is the process moving forward if this gets approved today for the discussion for zoning and what that will look like? What's that process and timeline going to look like? I don't know if, do we drive that or does the city
Yeah.
administration drive that?
Well, it's sounding, so I would think the city administration would be the driving force on that one.
I've got some amendments.
You would deal, that's a case by case basis. You would deal with anyone. So that would be a case by case basis. You would deal with anybody who's B2.
Maybe.
So if you don't speak into the mic, they can't
They
hear
can't,
you on the street.
So that would be a case by case basis thing. That'd be a case by case basis. Anybody making the application, you'd probably be B2.
Well, that's the whole issue. I think we need to set parameters for the city on how this is going to be implemented. B2, I don't agree with. That B2 is going to go next to every neighborhood I have in my district. And that's the discussion that I think needs to be had to lay out. If this gets approved, how is this going to function in the city? In a case by case basis, we don't have the ability to input in a planning commission at that point, because then it's just a legality and there's no precedent that's established by this body or any other body that lays out how we're going to allow this. And we are the allowing entity by bringing the ordinance in. So I'm just curious what that looks like.
So what you would have, you got to remember that there are parameters set out in the statute already. And you already have zoning parameters. Can't be within certain distance without that's a limitation. Can't be within a certain distance of a church that lays it out there. So, and you're only going to have 37 in the state. So when somebody comes in, so you're going to absolutely have a seriously limited number. It's already there. I mean, you already have it there in your zoning. So if there was a different conversation, then there might be some tendency to want to delay this. 11th hour delays would be problematic for anybody trying to deal with an application, but we have a workable solution already built in to go through this process.
Look, everything you just said, you're correct. It's there, but the school and church limitations, 1,000 feet, that's 0.2 of a mile. We have many kids that walk a lot further than that, and they're going to pass right by these pot shops. And saying that there's only 34 allowed, that's today. That's not 5 years from now. That's not 10 years from now. And B2, like I said, you go through my district, the 38 neighborhoods that I have, there's a strip mall on the outside of just about every one of those. So what you're saying is when this passes with the current parameters that we have, these pot shops can be outside of any neighborhood within 0.2 of a mile of a school or a church. And that's what we're going to bring in.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds?
I share the concern Mr. Jones has outlined here, but also I would point the administration's attention to the actual, some of the many laws that are here. And this does say, this is from the Alabama Department of Agriculture and Industries, which is one of the governing bodies. And an operation plan is required by these applicants. And they must submit an application for a cultivator and integrated facility, and they must adhere to that plan and as part of the licensing process. And they must operate consistently with that. Also in these same rules, with dealing specifically with zoning, it talks about specifically pesticides or other hazardous substances, as well as hazardous waste and chemical waste. Now, maybe there's a way to accommodate those things in B2, but I'm not exactly sure. And I know we reserve a lot of those things for sort of heavier industry areas, maybe I-1, I-2, something like that. And that deals specifically with the integrated facilities, the grow sites, the big industrial buildings. So I don't think it would make any sense whatsoever to put the integrated facility into B2.
You can't.
And then
You can't. You're right. You can't put an integrated facility in a B2. We're clearly,
on our zoning classification chart, nowhere on that classification chart does it specify a cannabis growing facility. It doesn't establish that. So then now if we want to establish those rules, then we would have to establish those rules after these folks have submitted their operational plan, which is required for their application, for them to get their license. So this affects them adversely, because if we come up with some changes and say these facilities, these integrated facilities are required to be in I-1, and they've already secured property, say in whatever that y'all come up with, then now we're in trouble. Now the citizens don't have an opportunity to change it, because now we're fighting against everybody who's already invested.
I think there
Furthermore, with regard to the dispensary sites, not the integrated facilities, there's a whole section in here about how parking and all that has to operate. That it must maintain a parking area adjacent to its structures. Exclusive use for patients and caregivers. They must provide reasonable privacy. And then there's additional section in here dealing with strip malls. They must maintain exclusive use. I don't think our parking requirements, when it goes to the planning commission, the rules that we have established in our municipal law is sufficient to meet all this. So now we're putting them, the planning commission, the planning staff, in an adverse position to try to pull from this and pull from that and try to cobble it all together, rather than modifying the UDC to incorporate these things that have already been established by the state. I'm sure you can appreciate that, Mr. Woods. So a vote today is not a vote to say we've got it all figured out. It's really not. Saying a vote today is that we may figure out, but we're going to figure it out with our backs against the wall and have less of an opportunity to get it right. These things that we are ordinarily in charge of as a city, creating law that makes sense and protects our citizens and all that sort of thing. I'm sorry, Mr. Woods, for cutting you off earlier. I just want to make sure my points were made while I had them in my head and be able to make them. But I'd love to hear your response if you have one regarding the zoning issue and then these parking issues and that sort of thing that were outlined.
The zoning always comes after a master plan. So that's why we do master plans and have planning in effect, So the opportunity to allow is an opportunity to allow. It's just like the Civic Center. You know, the reason why we pushed so hard for a master plan was so that we could zone after the master plan.
My whole point is there's nothing in our zoning codes, UDC or anything that addresses the sale of drugs in our city. And THC is a drug. And we have one opportunity to get this right. Because once we pass this, and if we don't change it from B2 and we vote for that, when it comes to the planning commission, they have no legal ability to change it. We have to do it now. And we need to get it right now.
Any other council members?
Ordinance 64067, rezone property located at 3200 and 3202 O'Shell Road from R1 and B3 to B3. Ordinance 83068, ordinance to amend Chapter 1 of the Mobile City Code to add Article 3, alteration of corporate limits.
Council?
President,
Hold on, Mr. Carroll. Council, I would like for our attorney to really, tell us the difference in between an ordinance and also a resolution, and also tell us the difference between what's before us today, the ordinance that's before us today, and also, excuse me, Resolution 02-1086. And as you also know that Mr. Reynolds had presented an amendment, and I would like for our attorney really to explain it, then I'll open up the table.
Thank you, President Small. Besides the general notion that an ordinance is of permanent operation and is codified in the city code, and a resolution is not of permanent, it operates for the life of the council in most cases, I believe the president was asking what the difference between the proposed ordinance and the resolution we have before us are. They are broadly similar. There are some differences which are as follows. In Section 1 between the two, that is the findings section, there is different language regarding the purpose of annexation. The ordinance specifies that this is due to the city's legislative powers, whereas that language is omitted from the resolution. In Section 2, titled Procedure, the resolution has 5 subsections, whereas the ordinance has 6. In the resolution, 5 and 6 are somewhat combined, so they do cover in general the same material, but the differences are that in subsection 2, that's Roman numeral II, the ordinance has more requirements for the feasibility study that is required, whereas the resolution has a somewhat abbreviated section of requirements and only goes subsections A through C, whereas the ordinance has subsections A through E. In Roman numeral III under procedure, that's A, the inventory of services is also somewhat abbreviated in the resolution as opposed to the ordinance. There's basically less requirement under the resolution for looking at what services are required, extant, et cetera. In subsection Roman numeral small v, in the resolution, it combines, as I said before, parts 5 and 6. The ordinance has separate 5 and 6, sections 5 and 6. And again, there are somewhat lesser requirements in the resolution as opposed to the ordinance. In section 2, procedure, subsection B, the cost benefit, that's titled cost benefit, they are mostly the same. They both have subsections 1 through 5. 1 through 4. It's just that subsections Roman numeral II and IV are somewhat abbreviated again. So in general, the differences between the ordinance and the resolution are that the resolution has less stringent requirements as to feasibility studies, what services have to be inventoried, and so forth. Subsections 3 and 4, which are other information and demographics, are identical in both the ordinance and the resolution. And finally, subsection 5, community meetings. They are broadly similar, but in the ordinance, it makes community meetings mandatory. The resolution does not. In the ordinance, there is language about the community meetings that if there's a significant request for meetings after 5 p.m., those have to be done. under the ordinance, that language, that after 5 PM language is omitted in the resolution. Otherwise, subsection C in the ordinance and the resolution under community meetings is identical. And that, broadly speaking, are the differences between the resolution and the ordinance.
Mr. Carroll.
Mr. President, I'm going to offer an amendment to this, and the amendment was given to hopefully the clerk by now. The amendment adds an escape clause to the ordinance in the last section, which the attorney has and has presented it. That escape clause allows for an escape in the processes on annexed areas under 10 acres. Also, in the last subsection, I'm going to change the word from community meetings to shall, from shall to may. So those are the two amendments that I have for this.
Any other council members? Mr. Reynolds?
I'll save it to the resolution. I guess I should say publicly that I prefer the resolution avenue, and I offered one amendment. We can talk about it on when the resolution comes up. But if there are some of these differences that from the ordinance to the resolution that need to be included in the resolution, I think we ought to spend the time to get that right on the resolution when it comes up.
So to our attorney, the ordinance and the resolution, when the council passed the resolution, the administration has to do what the city has to abide by it, correct? No flaws, no breakthroughs, no, I'll do this or do that. Is that correct or not?
That is correct.
And that's just the life of, when you say the life of the council, it's just that's this particular council that passed the resolution, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Consent resolutions held over 4895, declare the structure at 9.5 North Cedar Street a public nuisance and order it demolished.
Mr. Carey, good?
Yeah. Yeah. Could you not hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Resolutions held over.
Oh, whoa. I thought we were still on the other thing. Did you announce 9.5?
I did.
That has been resolved. They've been working with the administration. That's Wendell Quimby. They're going to change this back into a historic warehouse with the work that's been done. The consultants have been hired. They're moving along. It doesn't go as fast as we want it to sometimes with consultants to make sure everything's okay. But all correspondence has been given to David and to everyone else, so we're all aware of it. So,
okay.
Probably move the table this.
Madam Clerk.
Resolutions held over 01-1074, authorize agreement with Spire Gulf for addition or removal of gas lights. 08-1075, authorize purchase order to Dogwood Productions for website hosting, maintenance, and live streaming services. This is January through September. 08-1076, approve purchase order to D3 Inc., doing business as 9 to 5 seating for furniture for Lafayette Street City Resource Center. 08-1077, approve purchase order to Adelty Ports and Maritime SLU for passenger boarding bridge for the cruise terminal. 08-1078, approve purchase order to Intera for 1-year subscription to Operations Situational Awareness Software for Mobile Fire and Rescue Department. 08-1079, approve item-based bid for printing and mailing of Revenue Department business license forms. 21-1080 and 1081 are authorizing contract with Dorsey and Dorsey Engineering and Geotechnical Engineering Testing for PAYGO resurfacing.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds.
Nick, if you don't mind, can you just, this is for districts 4 through 7. I'm sure 1 through 3 is going to come at a later point, but is this for all of the pay-as-you-go for, that was just approved?
Yeah, so we broke the pay-as-you-go program up into 3 different projects. We basically have to follow the money and follow the way the county breaks it up in their system. So this is just the work for Commission District 2. You'll see another contract that's Commission District 3
I got you.
and one countywide and Commission District 1. So one of them, we've already physically got the contracts. Hopefully y'all see it in the next week or 2, and the other one's in the works being negotiated.
All right, thank you, Nick.
And hey, Nick, while you're there, can you give us an estimated timeline on when construction will start, and how will this play into what is just finished, I'm guessing, on the CIP resurfacing?
Yeah, so.
And how it will probably overlap into our next resurfacing
Yeah.
a year from now?
Fortunately or unfortunately,
Yeah.
depending on your perspective, it's going to be on top of one another. There's a $10 million contract that's the CIP resurfacing that started a few months ago. They've been working in District 3, I think 1, 2, and 5. A lot of the concrete work in those other districts, only really paving in District 3 so far. It's maybe 15% started. It's a big project. This will come really right behind it and on top of it. So probably spring-ish, hopefully you'll start seeing the construction contracts for the PAYGO, and the PAYGO represents $14+ million. So there's going to be over $24 to $25 million of resurfacing under contract at one time. So that's the reason we had to break it up and give it to more contracts or more consultants to help us manage it. And it's just that's a lot of work being taken place at one time, especially when these projects have contractors working in multiple sites at any given time. I mean, like I said, in the 2022 CIP resurfacing, we've got contractors active in 4 different districts at one time. And you're right, the next CIP we'll start planning and being working on that on top of it. So find me some more engineers or help me find some. I need them desperately.
Yeah, putting out the word for more engineers. So Nick, are the same companies doing the PAYGO and the CIP resurfacing?
Yes. So we've used Sawgrass a lot in the past, and they execute it very well for us. So you'll see them doing bigger contracts because they've got the nuts and bolts worked out, how to execute it well. You see this one? This is Dorsey and Dorsey. They've done other projects for us in the past, resurfacing projects, but they're capable. So that's a little bit of a change. We're just having to make the tools in our tool shed bigger and better, to be able to execute this much work. So
Okay. All
hope
right.
that answered the question.
Thanks.
And the council, so y'all know, your secretary has all the maps. The pay-as-you-go stuff is online. So if there's something missing in there, they can look at it online and see the street names and all the breakdown of it. But I've tried to make sure that they've got all the resources up here for y'all if there's questions that come.
Great.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks.
Madam Clerk.
371082 is approval of a certificate of public convenience and necessity to Bethel Non-Emergency Medical Transportation to operate a non-emergency medical transport service. 02-1086, proposed study of alteration of corporate limits.
Mr. President,
Yeah, Mr.
yeah, could we get an explanation of what this is? And this one slipped by me last week, but just what's the concept of this study and purpose?
That's,
Which one?
The alteration of corporate limits, 1086.
Yes, that's the
that's the resolution.
resolution.
That's
That-
the resolution.
The administration.
The way it's worded is just,
Ms. Reynolds.
Yeah, so I just have one small amendment, which was to section 2A. And the amendment simply states that third-party validation required. Data produced as a result of this resolution shall require validation by a disinterested and qualified third-party consulting entity. This consultant shall be selected by the city attorney and legal counsel for the city council and subject to the approval of the city council president. And then that everything else is the same, matches the resolution that was put forward. So that's it.
Any other council members? Madam Clerk?
Ordinance is being introduced, 64069. Consider an ordinance to amend Chapter 64.3.I Downtown Development District of the current zoning ordinance, Chapter 64 of the Mobile City Code, 1991, and amend Appendix A Downtown Development District of the Unified Development Code, Chapter 64, Mobile City Code. We've been asked to lay this over to January 3rd.
Okay.
January 3rd. Consent resolutions being introduced, 371087 is recommending approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a lounge retail liquor Class 1 license to Club Elegance on North Lafayette Street. 401088, 1089, 1090 are declaring the structures public nuisances and ordering them demolished. 581091, assess costs for removal of weeds, Weed Lien Group 1629. 601092, 1093, and we're adding 601105, approving award of special bonus to the Public Works at Large Employee of the Month, to the Public Services Employee of the Month, and to the Parks and Recreation Employee of the Month. Resolutions being introduced, 081094, approve purchase order to Stuns Inc. for 1-year subscription for workflow management software for MPD, $49,476. 081095, approve purchase order to Mike Hoffman Equipment Services Inc. for demolition, removal, and replacement of fuel leak identification and repair at the city garage, $48,989. Also to the same company for 2 new fuel dual hose dispensers at the city garage, $21,005. 081097, authorized purchase order with Caseware for annual subscription, Caseware investigation management software for MPD, $36,000. 091098, appropriate $1,700,000 in the Municipal Government Capital Improvement Fund to various city projects. 211099, authorized contract with Touchdown Cleaning Services for janitorial services at the Mobile, Alabama Cruise Terminal, $34,430. 211100, authorized contract with TTL Inc. for 2023 miscellaneous drainage groups, $79,000.
Mr. President, on this, Nick, since you're still here somewhere, what kind of drainage work are we going to be doing on this miscellaneous? Is this just whatever happens to come up that needs to be taken care of, or specific, or?
No, this project, it's 11 different sites kind of throughout the city. It's a lot of little projects that Public Works has tried to manage, as far along as they can, keeping some things patched up, and it's really just kind of beyond what else they can do. They're primarily point repairs, pipe linings, some outfall repairs. It's some of the stuff that probably won't be all have gotten calls over the year. This is just design work. It was funded with some leftovers from previous miscellaneous drainage projects. So hopefully we can get these sites designed, get a realistic cost on them, and then figure out a way to either contingency account or fund some future construction dollars. Fund the construction with future dollars.
Thank
So
you.
Everybody but Joel and 5 and 1, okay.
371101 is the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity to the Alabama Coalition of Citizens with Disabilities to operate a shuttle service. 601102, authorized payment to the Mobile Area Chamber of Commerce Foundation for contribution toward commissioning of a bronze bust, $10,000. Call for public hearings. 411103, call for public hearing to consider approval of a certificate of public convenience and necessity to Baby B's Transportation to operate a shuttle service scheduled December 20th. 411104, call for public hearing to rezone property located at 3516, 3526 Halls Mill Road from R1 and I1 scheduled January 10th. Announcements at the 10:30 meeting, in accordance with requirements by the Rebuild Alabama Act, I will acknowledge receipt of the annual report.
Council members. Is Mr. Daves alive over there? Oh, so, anything from the administration? All right, see each other at 10:30.